Morning, Trainiacs. One of the most commonly asked questions that I get is, what watch do you use? Give you a spoiler alert, Garmin 935. Give you maybe a little bit of disappointing news. I did not choose this because I think it's the absolute best watch that everyone needs to get. I'll explain today why I chose this watch, how I use this watch, and what watch I recommend for yo. I gotta wait a little bit before this pool opens, so we got time. So this is the watch I use. This is the Garmin 935 XT. Now I'll start by explaining why I purchased this watch instead of any other watches. When this was on the market, it was kind of like this and the Garmin Fenix 5 series were the top of the line watch. It was the top of the line multi-sport watch specifically for runners, cyclists, triathletes, could be used for anything. And it had basically the same software features of the Garmin Fenix series, but it was a little bit smaller. Now, I don't like wearing a lot of jewelry besides wedding ring, which is now the Oura ring, and this watch, that is all that I wear. So I wanted basically the top of the line watch that was in the smallest form factor. Now, the reason that I went with this top of the line watch isn't because I use it for all the different bells and whistles and features, and I believe that everyone has to have the top of the line watch. Couple of things. Number one, I believe in purchasing things that are fairly future-proof. I don't like buying something that is cheap because I feel that if you buy something that is tremendously cheap, in the end it's actually going to cost you more. So I wanted to get something that I knew was going to last quite a while. I think this has been maybe a year or so, and totally usable. Also, I believe in buying things personally for me that kind of future-proof myself. In this case, because so many people ask me questions about watches and data and metrics and things like that, I believe in, at least personally for me, being able to get something that if readings, metrics, features, updates of this come out, or new gadgets come out that have to tie into something that's a little more high-end, I'm able to do that. So that's really the only reason that I bought this watch specifically. But as far as all those bells and whistles and all the potential readings that I can get from this, let me explain how little I use and how I actually do use this. Okay, so let's talk about how I use this first in the swim, because that's where we are. Now, this has the ability to track everything from your distance per stroke to your swim golf score to your strokes per length, your average pace per 100 meters or 100 yards. I really don't use any of that. Frankly, if none of you followed me, all I would use is the pace clock. The only reason that I use this in the pool is because all of you like to follow along with what I'm doing on Strava, see how long I'm swimming, and Instagram photos of my watch when I do a big or a fast swim. They tend to do fairly well. So the only reason that I really use this in the pool is for all of you. The only feature that I do use this for in the pool is if goggles fog up by the end of the swim set and I can't quite see the pool clock, I'll use this for the interval times. That's it. That's all I use it for. And you look at elite swimmers, that's all they use. Rarely will any elite swimmer use anything but a pool clock, and swimming with this, it ends up being a little bit more of a nuisance. Now, why do I end up posting some of those times that I take from this on social media and talk about how there's progress? Well, because I think a more important thing to measure in the pool isn't your average time per 100 yards in a swim based off of this, because you can fudge that by stopping and starting in between all of your sets, by doing more or less drill sets, In my case, I don't really worry about starting when I'm at the wall. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Sometimes if Jerry, coach of Tower 26, the swim program that I use, prescribes, hey, with this part of the swim, I want a time that you need to report in, I might use this, but I also might use the pool clock, because when it comes right down to it, those generalities of the swim golf, the distance per stroke, the average time per 100 meters or 100 yards, all of that pales into comparison to how are you actually performing. And the only way that you know if you're actually making performance gains is by doing standardized test parts of your set that you can track over a period of time. And this just gives way more information than those specific performance times that we need. Now let me do that swim and I'll get to how I use this for the bike and the run. I got 5 more minutes to wait. That was a pretty awesome milestone there. That was I don't know why I'm looking at this because turn it off. 3,000 meters, 50-meter long course, huge milestone. Never swam it that fast in my life. Go to the Instagram post that I did on February 20th. You'll see how fast. All right, cycling. All right, so as far as using this watch on the bike is concerned, I do not, ever. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't. The reason that I don't use this watch is because I have this Wahoo Element Bolt in custom Triathlon Taren red. Yeah, that's right. What I put on this is I put cadence, I put heart rate, I put power, and depending on the ride, maybe ride length, things like that. Now, the reason that I'm using this instead of my watch is because it's just so much nicer to be able to mount that, look down, and have a nice big screen. It's kind of like the cycling standard, whether you're using this or, Gracie, what are you eating? Hey, gravel. Whether you're using this or another bike computer, you need a head unit if you are going to start using a bunch of metrics when you start cycling. Now, to save yourself some money, what a lot of people end up doing when they first end up getting that metrics and the data on their bike is they use their watch. So if in the case that, let's say, I've hopped on the bike last summer and this has been dead, well, I have the watch paired to the power meter, paired to the heart rate monitor, paired to the cadence, and I just store everything there, keep it off to the side and not really look at it. But if you want to look at it, there's a lot of mounts that you can get to end up mounting that watch, this watch, whatever watch you have on there. So it's not like the watch itself is the specific thing that I'm using. It's the power meter, it's the cadence meter, it's the heart rate monitor, it is all of the peripheral devices, and this is just a way to display it and capture all the data. Notice that I'm not saying this is a critical watch. You're gonna see that in another form in a second when we talk about running over here. So when we start getting into running, there are a few metrics that I start looking at depending on what type of run I'm doing. If I am doing base mileage in the off season, in the base building season, at the start of the year, I end up doing a lot of that training by heart rate. So I use the Wahoo Ticker as a chest heart rate monitor, because what I find is that even though this has wrist heart rate sensing with that little flashy light that I showed you, it's not very accurate. When you start moving around a lot, when you start sweating a lot, this very accurate. This might be as much as 30 beats off a minute, so not a really big fan of it. But I will use this heart rate monitor to capture the heart rate, and then I will stream that and display it here. When I start introducing little bursts of speed in the base building phase of the season, I am not really looking at pace. I start by long runs, just kind of fastest average without a significant drop off. So I start feeling that out. So I'm not really looking at my watch for that. When I'm doing track efforts, I am looking at splits. So all I need is time. I don't need this to tell me that I'm running at a 3:30 per kilometer pace. I'm just looking for a split, and I'm doing it on a track or a treadmill where everything's measured. So again, this is not really very critical. But the time that this does become critical with power is right now, right before the races start happening in the course of a year. I want to start dialing in race pace. So if I'm going to run outside, I will display my pace per kilometer. If I'm running inside, I'm going to use the Stride power meter for the foot pod because it is more accurate, like way more accurate than the treadmill pace detection on this or the treadmill's actual pacer. So I will stream the pace from that to that. So notice again that I'm not really using this as the critical device, which is why when people ask me, what watch do you recommend? I don't really even answer because it's kind of just personal preference. Let's wrap this up. So notice that really the critical aspect of what watch I've chosen really has nothing to do with the actual workouts. As far as workouts go, essentially, I just want a little bit of time function and I want it to be able to pick up pace sometimes, but not all the time. And I want it to be able to connect to the peripherals. So that's the bigger thing. Do you guys want to come up? Come on. I know this isn't your side, but you can do it. Come on. Grace. So instead of stressing out about what watch you get, think about what you want to have as far as peripherals in your training. Are you going to be using a power meter? Are you going to be using a foot pod? Are you going to be doing a lot of track running and just need splits? Are you going to be training by heart rate? All of these things matter a lot more than what watch you get. From the watch standpoint, it really doesn't matter. However, I will put affiliate links in the description below to 3 watches that I would recommend at a beginner, an intermediate, and a high premium price point. And I'm going to recommend those watches based off of their interaction with other devices. Not this watch itself is a great watch. I'll be looking at value and I'll look at how is it going to fit with all the rest of the training that I would recommend. So it's less about recommending the watch and it's more about recommending what training I would do. I'm sorry that this isn't the answer that I'm sure a lot of you want, which is like, this is the best watch, or that is the best watch, or Suunto is better than Garmin, or Garmin is better than... I don't know. For all that stuff, go check out DC Rainmaker. He compares all the features of everything. I am more about the training. And from the aspect of training, this is basically just a screen. All right, Trainiacs, check out those affiliate links in the description below if you are interested in getting a watch. But don't stress out about it. Later, Trainiacs. Right, Grace?